As a true crime creator, I find myself immersed in a world of violence, chaos, cruelty and evil. But a massive majority of the perpetrators I cover are men. So when I find a case where the perpetrator is a woman, it kind of hits differently. But it is extremely rare to find a female perpetrator so deplorable that I feel the need to add them to my special club. Often female murders are spontaneous or are more arm's length, involving poisons and the like. So when you find one that is purely vicious and callous, then the choice is clear. I will therefore be christening my first cock-womblet for this episode, which takes us to 2022 and is strongly at odds with the beautiful and tranquil nature of the setting of Havant, a town in the south of the UK. This is the brutal murder of Frankie Fitzgerald, and this is Murder of Crows. The town of Havant is in the county of Hampshire on the south coast of the UK and is a lovely place. While not having any particular geographical or headline-grabbing claim to fame, it has nonetheless been a centre for commerce in this region of the UK for a while. And by while, I mean that its history can be traced back to Celtic and then Roman times. It is mentioned in the Domesday Book in 1086 as a village having a population of around 100 people. Since the monks of Winchester Cathedral were granted permission to hold a market in the town in the year 1200, it has maintained a reputation as a centre for trade. Today, merely 824 years later, it is a thriving town with a population of around 45,000 people, surrounded on one side by the UK coast and on the other by rural countryside. As such, it is considered a place where bad things tend not to happen, and evil tends not to touch. So the events of the 17th of July 2022 were a marked counterpoint to the general nature of the town. But to add a degree of context and texture to our story, and perhaps trace back the origins of why the things that happened came to pass, we need to go back a few years further to look at the life of single mother Shaye Groves. And if we dip into her life in around 2019, we find a young single mother. Born and raised in the area, she was considered perhaps slightly eccentric, but by and large, a normal single mum trying to make a good life for her daughter. But come 2020, there was a significant shift in her life. It may be that national lockdown allowed her to perhaps focus inward and enjoy things that she could do from home. But saying this would be to give a possible excuse for things that she freely chose to do. In 2020, Shaye Groves began becoming more and more interested in true crime. Nothing wrong with that, I hear you say, and of course I say that too. But for Groves, it grew and grew until it became an all-consuming obsession, with a particular penchant for serial killers. And her interest in all things dark and dangerous spilled over into her home environment and even her appearance. It was in this time that her outward appearance changed significantly, with tattoos and piercings adorning her face, neck and body. Her home on Botley Drive became a reflection of her growing fascination. A coffin-shaped bookshelf adorned one room, while framed pictures of infamous killers like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer and Rose West hung on her bedroom walls. Shaye's collection of true crime memorabilia extended to mugs bearing the faces of serial killers, I make no comment on that, and an assortment of weapons, including knives, Viking axes, and a Celtic dagger. In isolation, these interests and personal adornments are fine. But the speed at which she went from zero to fucking scary was what made the changes so striking and a little alarming. Despite her unusual interests, Shaye Groves maintained a close relationship with her daughter, and she was also sharing her home with her friend Lauren White and Lauren's own young child. On social media, Shaye Groves continued to portray herself as a loving mother, posting pictures of baking sessions with her daughter, and constantly expressing pride in how her child was developing. She was certainly maintaining a veneer of normalcy. In early 2022, she began a relationship with a 25-year-old man called Frankie Fitzgerald. Now, their relationship would blow hot and cold, swinging like a pendulum between passionate entwining and conversation to aggressive arguments around times of indifference. Their unconventional sexual practices gave an insight into Groves' darker side, with BDSM and also knife play being strong consensual features of their relationship. But Groves' darker nature would erupt to the surface with fatal consequences on the night of the 17th of July 2022. While Frankie lay sleeping, Groves decided to go through his phone. Always ends well. She claimed she had discovered messages on Frankie's phone from what she believed was a 13-year-old girl. In a fit of rage, she reached for a dagger she kept under her pillow, as you do, and attacked Frankie as he slept. And the assault was brutal and unrelenting. A post-mortem analysis would later reveal that Frankie had been stabbed 17 times to the anterior chest, twice to other chest areas, and 3 times to the neck. But what happened next would reveal the true darkness that had been brewing inside the young mother. Instead of calling emergency services, she made a video call to her friend Vicky Bateup. While giggling, Shaye Groves showed Vicky the lifeless body of Frankie wrapped in a duvet, with her saying, "I'm done with him," while her tone was chillingly casual. She told Vicky that she'd been looking through Frankie's phone and found that he had messaged a 13-year-old girl on Facebook, which led her to lose it. Thankfully, and understandably disgusted and stunned in equal measure, Vicky immediately contacted the police, which set in motion an investigation that would ultimately uncover the dark reality behind Shaye Groves' actions.
No, don't close the door. What's going on? What's going on?
With what?
You Shaye?
I am Shaye.
Right. I've had some kind of strange, interesting call about somebody having had their throat slit.
Okay.
So what's going on here?
No, that's
a dog, is it?
my dog's, yeah.
Hello? You're under arrest on suspicion of murder. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. The necessity for your arrest is for a prompt and effective investigation. Okay.
Police arrived at the home and Groves was duly arrested. Particularly of note to the police, as Groves pled ignorance. was the overwhelming smell of bleach in the home. But another red flag was the speed with which Groves changed from not knowing at all what had happened to a tale of self-defense. But as the investigation went on, the red flags kept coming. Groves had a camera set up in her bedroom, which she used to record and edit video clips of her encounters with Frankie, which she manipulated to suggest that he committed acts against her consent. But when investigators later obtained the original footage, showing that their relations were always consensual, it kind of fucked that up. After the murder, Groves sent numerous messages to a friend and even invited another man to her home while Frankie's body lay in her bedroom in an apparent attempt to create an alibi. Even friends of Shaye Groves were aware of some of the more dubious and devious elements of her nature and personality, as friends stated that Groves had a habit of compiling evidence against her partners to later use as leverage if she needed to. Vicky Bater, the woman who had blown the whistle on Groves, revealed that Groves had used similar tactics to threaten past boyfriends. And then there was Groves' claim about Frankie messaging a 13-year-old girl being proven completely false. Investigators found that the girl in question was actually 17, not 13, as Shaye had claimed. And furthermore, Frankie had blocked the girl the moment she mentioned being underage. As well as Groves, police also arrested her housemate, Lauren White. Now, I don't believe the police ever thought for a millisecond that she was directly involved in Frankie's death, but rather I think they wanted to put pressure on the girl to avoid any misplaced loyalty. But with a display of admirable loyalty, but perhaps very, very poor character judgment, Lauren refused to give police the PIN number to her mobile phone. That said, she was soon released on bail, while police pondered charging her with obstruction of justice. As things progressed, it was pondered how much of what had happened was due to Groves' long-standing manipulative nature, and how much was due to her true crime obsession and the blurring of the lines between TV and reality. And the truth was probably a combination of the two. though her manipulative nature was strongly highlighted throughout, suggesting that that was probably the more pressing cause. When questioned about her choice of room decorations, Groves offered perhaps a slightly unexpected explanation, with her saying, "The pictures," those being the ones of the serial killers, "the pictures are from an artist on Etsy. They're not photos, they are art," she said, before going on to say, "I thought they looked pretty cool and it's different. I'm also a massive Disney fan, but I wanted my bedroom to be completely different and to shock people." Think you managed that, my love? This statement provided a glimpse into Shaye's perspective on her true crime interests, blurring the lines between art appreciation and then morbid fascination. The trial of Shaye Groves began in early January of 2023 at Winchester Crown Court. The prosecution, led by Stephen Parian, presented a case that portrayed Shaye as a calculated killer who had committed a premeditated murder and then attempted to cover her tracks. The autopsy revealed the full extent of Frankie's injuries, including the multiple stab wounds to his chest and to his neck. The court was shown the disturbing video call Shaye had made to Vicky Bateup, where she casually displayed Frankie's body and claimed that she had killed him after discovering messages to a 13-year-old girl. And this claim would later be shown to have been completely baseless. The prosecution presented evidence that the girl Frankie had been messaging was 17, not 13, and that Frankie had blocked her immediately upon learning of her age, completely contradicting Groves' reason for the murder. Friends and acquaintances testified about Shaye's obsession with true crime and her history of manipulative behavior, especially towards intimate partners. Psychologists attempted to shed light on the influence of her obsession with true crime being a factor, but the exact influence was difficult to determine. Shaye's defense team attempted to portray the killing as an act of self-defense, claiming that Frankie had become aggressive due to drug use. They also tried to explain away her true crime obsession as merely an interest in art and her pagan beliefs. But the evidence against Shaye Groves was overwhelming. On February the 17th, 2023, after careful deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous guilty verdict. And Shaye Groves smiled as the verdict was read, showing a distinct lack of remorse for her actions. On the 22nd of February 2023 at Winchester Crown Court, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 23 years for the murder. In sentencing her, Mr. Justice Kerr told Groves, don't know where he got this idea, but he told Groves that she was not a cold-blooded murderer, and said that the killing was a crime of passion, telling her, "You loved the man you killed, and you killed the man you loved." I will put a link to the full sentencing remarks in the video description for anyone who may want to read them in full.
Serial killer obsessed woman who stabbed her on-off boyfriend to death has been jailed for life with at least 23 years in prison. Shaye Groves sentenced at Winchester Crown Court for the murder of 25-year-old Frankie Fitzgerald. She stabbed 17 times last July in Hampshire. Let's get more with our reporter Ray Addison, who's been following events at Winchester Crown Court. Ray, it's pretty heavy-duty stuff.
Yeah, it's a very disturbing case, this one, Mark. Shaye Groves was 26 at the time of this offence. Now, she was a goth, obsessed with serial killers, somebody who decorated her bedroom with framed portraits of murderers, people like Yorkshire Ripper, Peter Sutcliffe, and Moore's murderer, Myra Hindley, as well. Now, she'd been dating Frankie Fitzgerald, who was 25, on and off for around 6 months, and prosecutors during the trial said that she was completely obsessed with him. They had a mutual interest in role play involving domination and submission. Now, during the trial, the prosecution argued that Groves had used her interest in murder and true crime to try to prepare an alibi. She had a CCTV camera set up in her bedroom, and she would take clips from that footage and send it to a friend, Vicky Bateup, to imply that there had been sexual violence involved in her relationship. Now, in the early hours of the 17th of July 2022, as Frankie Fitzgerald was asleep in her bed, she used a dagger to slit his throat, and then she stabbed him 17 times in the chest as well. She didn't then call 999. Instead, she video phoned her friend, Ms. Bateup, and told her that she'd been looking through Mr. Fitzgerald's phone, had seen a message to a girl on Facebook, and had, quote, lost it, and then stabbed him. She told Miss Bateup that she was going to clean up and bury him in the back garden. Now, at that point, Miss Bateup alerted the police. They arrived 5 hours later, and she told them that he had tried to attack her. Now, the court, obviously, the jury did not find that a convincing argument. In his summation, the judge said that this was clearly a crime of passion. She realised that her relationship with Frankie Fitzgerald was ending, and she had lost her temper and acted on impulse. She will now serve a minimum of 23 years in jail. She'll be 50 when she's eligible for parole.
Marie Wotton, the CPS Wessex senior Crown prosecutor, said, Shaye Groves had a macabre fascination with serial killers and murder documentaries. She had pictures of serial killers on her walls, owned many gangster books, and watched murder documentaries. This meant that she was familiar with what to do and say to try and engineer a situation where she would look like a victim, which of course completely unravelled in the face of the evidence that was collected from key witnesses, from mobile phones, from call data, and from CCTV recordings.
My name's Rod Kenny and I'm Detective Chief Inspector with Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police, and I'm here to read a brief statement after sentencing today. Shaye Groves was responsible for the shocking and sustained attack which tragically resulted in Frankie's death. We are pleased with the jury's verdict, and the sentence will ensure that Groves spends a significant period of time in prison for what she has done. Nothing can fill the void that has been left in the lives of those who knew Frankie, and our thoughts remain with his family, friends and loved ones. I would like to praise their courage and hope that this sentence will in some way deliver the justice they deserve. We will do everything we can to investigate and prosecute those responsible for these horrific crimes. The details disclosed in court were distressing for all to hear, and I am immensely proud of the tireless work of the local investigation teams, detectives, specialist teams and our colleagues at the Crown Prosecution Service. Domestic abuse in all its forms will not be tolerated and remains a priority for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Constabulary. I would urge anyone who may be a victim of these crimes to come forward and to tell the police. You will be listened to, believed and supported. Thank you.
Frankie Fitzgerald's family said, "As a parent, you never expect to outlive your children. You will do anything in your power to protect them. Frankie was our baby, the youngest of 5 children. He can never be replaced. He was a kind and beautiful person, and sadly leaves 2 children behind that will never get to know their daddy. We thank the jury for their verdict today." His father Barry's statement added to the sentiment, where he spoke of the family being broken by the killing, with him going on to say he had his life in front of him and this was snatched away. I'm not sure we'll ever get over this. And that was the case of our first official cock womblet. A woman who was already manipulative and devious when she went down a rabbit hole of obsession and chose to remain in the darkness. In the process, a young father of 2 was mercilessly cut down in his prime, being murdered while he slept for a reason that was very quickly debunked. There can be no excuses for such wanton disregard for the life of someone that she cared about and maybe even loved, if she was or is even capable of love. It was a senseless murder that should never have happened. And stay calm, dear viewers. I think her interest in true crime was merely a gateway to release her existing true nature, than necessarily a trigger for hitherto impossible violence. So I'm sure that most of you I'm probably okay. This video is of course dedicated to Frankie Fitzgerald. He was a member of a close family, as well as being the father to 2 children who will now have to grow up without him. I send heartfelt condolences to his friends and family and hope that they successfully navigate the difficult grieving process. Thank you for watching another episode of Murder of Crows. Don't be afraid to hit that there subscribe button. And feel free to join me at the live premieres at 6 PM UK time on Mondays and Fridays, where we have a wonderful and supportive little community who chat about all things true crime and indeed otherwise. But with that said, I'm Steve, this is Samson, and we will see you when we see you.
Say that you're ready, but you won't like it. You say